Hi everyone, I'm here today to talk about the four musical eras and how to classify and differentiate between them. So, the first musical era is Baroque, and it started in the 1600s and ended in 1750. You can remember when the Baroque era ended because that's when Bach died. So, Bach died in 1750, and that's when the Baroque era ended, and that's when the classical era arose. So, in the Baroque era, there are many famous composers. A few of them could be Bach, Vivaldi, and Pachelbel. You may have heard Pachelbel's canon as it's played in many weddings, and Vivaldi, famous for his Four Seasons. So, some characteristics of Baroque music is that they have is that the Baroque composers usually include equal intervals of rhythm. They have terced dynamics, and they usually use a harpsichord, but you can't trust that completely because there are many classical pieces that use the harpsichord as well. So you need to remember that there's equal intervals, and there's also a driving pulse that is very common in the Baroque era. And yeah, and a lot of melodic sequences as well. So for the classical era started in 1750 and it ended in 1820. So some famous composers are Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. And some characteristics of classical music is that it is very simple. Usually it has one main melody. And a lot of these composers they have gotten famous because of these harmonies and how it is easy to whistle them. Like in class, we talked about how if it's easily uh, if you can easily hum it or whistle it, or if it's catchy, that's usually a sign of it being in the classical era because of that one main melody. It also includes some harmonies to complement the melody, but usually in classical music there is one. Now, for the Romantic era started in 1820 and ended in the 1900s. So, some famous composers from the Romantic era are Chopin, Tchaikovsky, and Wagner. And one very big classification of Romantic music is that it usually tells a story. It maintains a mood or an atmosphere. So when the story is being told through the expression of music, you can kind of understand like the climax of the story, the beginning, how it ends, and all that stuff. So it basically creates a story. So it's more emotional, more elaborate, and there's also a bigger orchestra compared to Baroque and classical. Some other characteristics of romantic. There's a lot of texture, multiple rhythms, and there are a lot of extremes because usually, if you're conveying a story and there's a climax, usually in music you would use maybe some dynamics and use forte to make it louder and more dramatic, or use pianissimo if it's sad or quiet. So that helps convey that story in the romantic era, basically. And so the last musical era that I'm going to talk about today is modern, or the 20th to 21st century. So it started in the 1900s and is continuous to the present time. Some famous composers are Strauss, Prokofiev, and Korngold. And because of the introduction of computers, and you can manipulate music through the computer processes, and it's more abstract and impressionable. So, with the complexity of music and technology, a lot of composers can play around with music. And an example of a song that's very interesting that we learned about in class is called 433. So, the whole point of that song is that for 4 minutes and 33 seconds, nobody plays, and it's just the sounds of the audience that make the music. So yeah, in the present time, there are a lot of impressionists as they're trying to find new ways to push the envelope of music. And yeah, so the four eras of music are Baroque, Classical, Romantic, and Modern, and I hope what I said has been helpful.